5 days of deadly protests in Iran against the Islamist regime, which has had the country in its grip for nearly half a century, give the latest bout of hope the mullahs could finally fall. Khomeini's regime has led a brutal crackdown, killing 7 of the protesters who spilled out onto the streets, furious at the soaring cost of living. Yet, just as events highlight the repressive nature of the regime, the unholy alliance of the left and the Islamists rears its ugly head again. The regime, which has financed Hamas, Hezbollah and the Houthi rebels, sowing chaos across the Middle East, has allowed millions of child marriages and seen Iranian women covered up and demoted to second-class citizens, is finding quiet yet strong support from the British left. Iranian economist Mani Basharzad, who came to the UK just a year ago, says it's been infuriating to listen to the privileged Brits who whisper to him their support for the murderous regime. He joins me now. You're here in Britain while your country seems to be up in flames. What's going on?
It's an interesting story. The protest in Iran has started from the most conservative part of the Persian society, which is the bazaar, which is the market. The businesses are protesting now. But one thing is fundamentally different this time. It's not about what they do not want, which is the Islamic tyranny, or what Sir Roger Scruton, one of my favorite philosophers of all time, called the tyranny of evil mullahs. But they're saying what they want, which is bringing back the monarchy. More than 10 cities now have joined the protests, and the Islamic Republic, as always, as it is its habit, started killing the protesters because of one simple reason. You should understand the mindset of the Islamic Republic. They think, what do they call the leader in Iran? Wali Faqih. What does Wali Faqih mean? It's not prime minister, it's not king, it's the representative of Allah on earth. Which means that if you attack this government, if you're against this government, you're not just the opposition. You are against Islam. You are against God. And we know well what does the text say about those who are infidels, those who are against the regime. You have the permission to kill them with any amount of violence that you want. But one thing this time is different. You have Donald Trump in United States and Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. Both of them know the nature of Islamic Republic. Joe Biden didn't know that. I don't think Keir Starmer knows that. Barack Obama for sure didn't know what does the Islamic Republic stands for. It's an ideology which is based to destroy the West. From the first days of the Islamic Revolution, what did the revolutionaries do? They occupied the US Embassy. Till now, in my country, we don't have US Embassy. We have British Embassy, we don't have US Embassy. And do you know what did they name the street which the British Embassy is based on? Bobby Sands Street, a member of IRA, is the name of the street which the British Embassy is based in. So you have a regime which fundamentally hates the West, fundamentally hates the freedoms that exist in a normal society. On the other side, we have people who are tired of that. This is what is fundamentally different about Iran. This is what Ayaan Hirsi Ali wrote 3 years ago in Unheard. She said, I think Iran is unique. Why did she say that? Because when women burn their hijabs in Iran, their brothers join them. Their fathers join them in the protest. And the new generation, the best estimates that we got is more than 50% of the new generation in Iran, the Gen Z, doesn't believe in Islam, doesn't believe in that ideology. Why is that?
Could you give us a little bit more about history about the Iranian culture? Because the general populace in Iran isn't as pious as other parts of the Middle East, are they?
No, they're not. If you go to the streets of Tehran, most of the people are not wearing a hijab. But there's a punishment for not wearing a hijab. Why is that happening? You should go back to Persian culture. Before 1979, you have seen the pictures, I'm sure, in Twitter, on X. It's like a Western country. Because that was the nature of the Iranian culture. You have a culture which from thousands of years ago likes wine, likes happiness. Omar Khayyam, which Mr. Fitzgerald was the best translator of Omar Khayyam, has a poem which says, drink wine, that's life's eternity. Drink wine, that's what life gives to you. This is the Persian culture. It likes happiness, it likes music, it likes dancing. And suddenly, a revolution happens with what the Shah of Iran called the unholy alliance of the leftists and the Islamists. They allied together and they did the revolution. But you may have one question. How did the atheist, communist, leftist were in a group, were in unity with the Islamists?
That's exactly what
One
I was
simple
going to ask you.
question. One simple answer. Their hatred of the West was more than their hatred of each other. When the revolution happened in Iran, we all know the law was mandatory hijab. The law of mandatory hijab was introduced. Who supported the law of mandatory hijab? You wouldn't believe this. Iranian feminists like Zahra Rahnavard, like Homa Nateq. They defended mandatory hijab because they thought hijab is a tool to resist against the West. That's what you should need to understand about the feminists at the time, about the Islamists at the time, and it hasn't changed. Guardian, the foreign minister of the terrorist regime of Iran, has written an article for Guardian. You can't believe this stuff. Because Foucault is the most cited social scientist. He's cited more than Sigmund Freud. He's cited more than Milton Friedman. He's the most cited social scientist. He went to Iran 1 year before the revolution. And what did he say? He's a gay man. He's an atheist. He's a postmodern leftist intellectual. He said Iran is a hope in a hopeless world. And then someone may ask him, Mr. Foucault, wasn't that Karl Marx who said religion is the opium of the masses? He answered, Karl Marx said in the next line that religion is the spirit of a spiritless world. That was his argument to defend the Islamic Revolution. And after the Islamic Revolution happened, he couldn't go back to Iran because of the obvious reasons the LGBTQ for Palestine cannot go to Palestine, because they would be killed by the regime which they supported.
What a lot of people in the West believe sometimes when they look at some of the horrific regimes that you have in the Middle East is that the people of those countries think that way, that they support it. And I think with the conversation we're having now, you're outlining that actually it can happen in countries like Iran where the people don't really support a regime like that. You've also pointed to the fact that in the West, Western philosophers, political activists actually cheer on Islamic regimes. And since you came to Britain, you found out that there is kind of a lingering support among British socialists for a regime like Iran's.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that I experienced because of one simple reason. Highly educated people, educated from Oxford, from Cambridge, when I said I'm Iranian, their first reaction was, oh, we support what your regime is doing. Their picture of the Iranian regime is a regime which supports the Palestinian cause, which they are true about that. But what they forget is the reason we have the massacre, the reason that the massacre happened in October the 7th, the reason that we have this disaster in Gaza is because of Islamic Republic. Because the Islamic Republic is, I call them, the JP Morgan of terrorism in Middle East. They finance Hezbollah, they finance Hamas. When the October the 7th happened, they celebrated in Tehran. The regime celebrated that in Tehran because that was a civilizational victory. You can call the Islamic Republic Nazis without ammunition. Because if they had ammunition, if they had enough resources, they would be like Nazis worldwide. Now that they don't have enough ammunition, now that the inflation is more than 50%, now that there's economic troubles, they still say we want to destroy the West. They still say we want to destroy Israel. In central Tehran, you have a square called Palestine Square. There's a big banner, which is a countdown. This is the term, countdown till the destruction of Israel. They don't have any guns right now. They don't have any resources. And then they have the ambition of destroying the West, destroying Israel, destroying United Kingdom. After the Jummah prayer, each Jummah prayer in Tehran, the regime says death to Israel, death to America, death to England. That's the mindset you are dealing with. But the left only sees one part, which is being anti-West, being anti-imperialism. They do not understand. The regime itself is imperialist. The regime itself is against gay rights, LGBTQ rights, against women rights. This is something that it's so tragic. I can't even think about that happening.
If I
when
just
they
give a little bit of a picture to our viewers. So in your article you've written, between 2017 and 2022, so that's only 5 years, there were 184 child marriages, so of girls under 15 in Iran. It's legal there for 50-year-old men to marry 10-year-old girls. And this is well known. Women are second-class citizens in your country, but you, since coming to Britain, you've had people on the left openly say to you that they support the Islamic regime there.
they're blind to that fact. They're blind to the fact which a 50-year-old man in Iran cannot drink a 9-year-old wine, but can marry a 9-year-old child. They're blind to this fact because of Western derangement syndrome. I describe Western derangement syndrome as the idea that any regime which is against the West automatically gains the moral high ground. It doesn't matter if 9-year-olds can get married. It doesn't matter if gay people would be killed in that regime. The only thing that matters for the leftists is that they fight against capitalism, they fight against the West. And that is the same case in Iran. They are against the West, and it is enough for the leftists to support them. And then any other thing, they find it as useless details. It's their own culture. Let them live like that. Okay, when it comes to a barbaric culture, like the Islamic Republic, you say, let them have their own culture. But when it comes to Western culture, it suddenly becomes racist, it suddenly becomes colonialist. Why do these double standards exist? I can't understand this.
And when
I have an explanation, which is the...
When you
Sorry?
lay this out to people, how do they respond? Do they take in the point that you've made, or are they just totally dismissive?
No, they try to label me as, no, you are just a supporter of United Kingdom, a supporter of US, a supporter of Western civilization. You're financed by CIA. You don't need to be financed by CIA or Mossad to understand these really simple things. And they can't call me racist. They can't call me Islamophobe because I lived my whole life in that country. I experienced this. I experienced walking with my girlfriend with the fear of the morality police arresting us. I experienced the fear of drinking alcohol and the risk of going blind. Because if you drink alcohol in Iran, it's illegal. So you can't have normal production of alcohol. There is the illegal production of alcohol in basements. And so many people, more than 50 people a year, go blind because of the low quality of the alcohol. I lived this experience. So no one can label me as racist, as fascist, as Islamophobe, as white supremacist, because I lived what it is their dream. Their dream is a country like Iran. It recognizes Palestine. It supports Hamas. It supports all the terrorist groups. It has a good relationship with the East, with China, with Russia. The economic system there is a socialist system. This is the utopia for them.
And a lot of the coverage, if the minimal coverage has been in the BBC and other organisations like that, has focused on the fact that it's the cost of living which Iranians are protesting. Whereas when I speak to people like you normally mention the repression of the regime and the Islamic system. So as someone who is Iranian, who has lived there his whole life, what is getting people so riled up over there?
This is a big lie, that it's because of cost of living. It's because of affordability crisis. They should answer one simple question. If it's because of economics, why people in the streets, the most conservative part of the society, the bazaar, is saying, God save the king? They're saying Javid Shah, which means God save the king. Why they're saying this? Why they're saying death to Khamenei? Why they're saying, this is a slogan in Iran, no to Gaza, no to Lebanon, I will give my life for Iran. They're not tired of the economic situation only. They are tired of the anti-Western ideology of the Islamic Republic. They're tired of their taxpayer money going to finance terrorist groups all around the Middle East. They're tired of women mandatory hijab. They're tired of everything. They're tired of that regime.
Why do you think that the BBC won't just say that? Is there a bias there?
It is a bias there, because it doesn't fit the narrative. The narrative which they want to say is, it is their own culture. If the Islamic Republic is oppressive, it's because the people want that. But this is not the reality. Do you know what the Iranian people call BBC? Iranian people in Iran have a big campaign calling BBC Ayatollah BBC.
Wow.
Because so many people in BBC, when Ismail Haniyeh was killed by Israel in Tehran, The BBC Persian journalist said he was a moderate. He was a moderate. How a person who designed October 7th attacks, how a person who's literally a leader of a terrorist group is a moderate. Everyone was shocked by that. And anytime these protests happen, they try to say it's because of economic reasons. People are protesting against the cost of living crisis. No, they're not. When they're saying we want back the monarchy, it means that they want a regime change. But most of the BBC Persian analysts, most of the people who go there, who talk there, are the reformers. The people who try to say, we want to reform the Islamic Republic. But as Henry Kissinger understood this really, really well, he said an Iranian reformer is an Iranian hardliner who's run out of ammunition. Because
So
the idea of reform is a lie in a theocracy. Because theocracy is designed not to reform. It's a religious regime and its principles are sacred. And you do not change sacred principles because of popular vote.
when we talk about what the Iranian people want next, you've mentioned that they want to return to the monarchy. And in the last bout of protests, Reza Pahlavi did a speech to the Iranian people. He said he's ready to take back power if and when the time comes. Why is it that the Iranians are so loyal to him? Why don't they want a democracy?
This is an important point. What Reza Pahlavi is saying is, if I gain the power, there would be free elections and people can choose between constitutional monarchy and a republic. And both systems are democratic. One is with a constitutional monarch, which is the Pahlavi dynasty, and the second one is a republic. That's what he's offering. So even so many Iranian Republicans, Iranian Democrats who hate the Islamic regime are not supporting the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi because they know the only chance for democracy in Iran is when Pahlavi comes back. And for a bit of context for GB News audience, Reza Pahlavi had a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu in 2023. Last year, 2025, he came to England, he met with Nigel Farage, David Cameron, and Boris Johnson. It's quite a vibe change. And what monarchy means for Iranians is normality. Normal relations with the West, good economic policy, free market capitalism. Before the 1979 revolution, Iran was what so many people look at Dubai like. Iran was like that. Abadan, so many people from United Kingdom went to Abadan to work. There was big money there. The other thing is, for example, in the 70s, when the UK had an energy crisis which introduced 3 days work week, Baker from the Treasury went to St. Maurice to have negotiations with Shah to ask Shah for some funds. This was the economic situation in Iran. And now you're facing with a regime which, when they gained power 45 years ago, $1 was equal to 7 tomans. Now $1 is equal to 145,000 tomans. They destroy the value of money. Yeah, that's the thing. In the recent days, in one single day, the value of dollar compared to the value of rial compared to dollar was decreased by 25%. The 1992 British pound prices was 16%. And that's a normal day in Iran. What you call a crisis here is just a normal day of life in the Iranian economy. And they do that with a purpose. Because when they print money, they make everyone poorer, but the state richer. Milton Friedman said that really well, that inflation is tax without legislation. Inflation is theft, and they are big thieves.
And Donald Trump is locked in a war of words today with the regime. He's said that if the regime kills any more protesters, that he is locked and loaded, ready to intervene. The regime have hit back, warning him not to. They're saying that if they were to, then it would let off chaos across the region. The fact that they're
Chaos across the region.
asking the US president not to intervene, does that not say that maybe they're a little bit scared?
They are scared after the 12-day war with Israel. Because when the 12-day war was happening, the foreign minister of Iran and Guardian columnist asked Israel for permission for himself to fly. That's the power structure. They're so weak right now. They don't have their militias anymore. after Assad regime fall. Hamas is weak, Hezbollah is weak, and now they're saying to Donald Trump that there would be a big mess in Middle East. The main reason there's a big mess in Middle East is because of the Islamic Republic. It's because they finance the terrorist groups there. It's because their main goal is destabilizing the Middle East. And suddenly now they're saying to Donald Trump, please don't attack us. They don't remember Khamenei made a prediction, I think 12 years ago, which he said in 2024, United States would run out of oil. What happened in 2024 and 2025 is Iran ran out of gas, Iran ran out of oil, Iran ran out of water. And you should remember this. Iran has the third largest oil reserves in the whole planet.
And during the 12-day war, which you just mentioned, I think there was this momentum growing, and I think people started to believe that maybe this could be the end of the regime, and it wasn't. Does what's happening right now give you hope? Do you think that there's a chance that this time we could overturn them?
It gives me hope because of a couple of reasons. The first one is, when the 12-day war happened, there was no protests. Because of simple reason, people are scared for their lives. If they go out, maybe there would be a bomb. So the first one is, now you have the protest. Now you have an Islamic Republic which is weak after the 12-day war. They killed all the important military leaders. And the third reason is, people are not clear about what they want. It's not only death to Khamenei, it's we want the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi back. These three reasons makes me hopeful for a change. I'm a pessimist, and I know that, because I have seen all these protests in 2023, 2022, 2019. But this one is different. The first one is, Iranian people are more aware of what they want. The second one is, United States has a Republican in the office. And the Republicans know how to deal with terrorism. You do not negotiate with evil, you defeat it. That's the mindset, which I think is going to help Iranians.
If the Iranian regime would finally fall after nearly 50 years, what would a new Iran look like with its relationship to Britain?
A free Iran means there's no money for Hamas to buy guns to kill innocent Israelis. It means that there's no Iranian drones for Russians to kill innocent Ukrainians. It means that no British national is going to be arrested in Iran for the sin of being British national. It means that China wouldn't get discounted oil rate from Iran to have unfair competition with UK and US in energy market. It means that the main route of destabilization in Middle East, the Islamic Republic, is not going to finance the terrorist groups all around the world, Hamas, Hezbollah. It means that Islamic Center of England, which is an organization operating in London, which its money comes from Islamic Republic of Iran, which its manager is chosen by the Supreme Leader of Iran, wouldn't continue its propaganda in the British, in United Kingdom. Islamic Center of England has connections with more than 100 charities and schools here in London, which we're talking about. This means the propaganda of the regime would end. And Jeremy Corbyn gave a speech to Islamic Center of England a couple of years ago, which is interesting to mention. But my last point is, Iran is the third oil reserve in the world. And if that oil reserve is in the hand of terrorist maniacs who want to use that resource to destroy Iran and destroy the West, I do not think that's in the interest of anybody to continue with.
Great, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.